We are so excited. We are here with Josh. He is a real estate broker as well as a lead generation consultant. And he's a broker in South Dakota and a referral agent in Oregon. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Really appreciate you guys inviting me on.
Welcome, Josh. Yeah, I'm excited to learn about this. I can we dive into something really quick because I don't know if it's just me because I'm in Canada, but what makes you a referral agent in Oregon? I need to know
So my wife is still not, she runs a team in Oregon. We used,
that. Oh, okay.
so we used to live in Oregon. And when we moved to South Dakota, I got my South Dakota license because I'm not actively doing business in Oregon. I wanted to keep it just in case we ever needed it. So you can put it in referral status. So I can still basically get paid as a referral agent in Oregon. I can also get paid as a referral agent in South Dakota, but I didn't want to let the license lapse in case I ever want to reactivate it, we could. So it's like in a holding pattern in Oregon until I decide what I want to do with it.
Oh, okay. So just because again, I don't really fully understand, but you can do referrals across the states, right? Like people just in general, like you guys can do referrals to each other, even though Desi's in Idaho and you're in Rapid City, right? That's normal practice.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I can do referrals nationwide,
Okay.
and really I could probably let my license go in Oregon. I spent all that time to get it. I
But
figure why
why?
not? Let's
Yeah,
keep it.
Oregon. Like you might want to go
So
back. There's trees.
I,
Yeah,
I
how
love
did
it
you end up
here.
in South Dakota?
My wife is a spreadsheet taskmaster, and a lot of it actually came down to business. The tax benefits of being in South Dakota were really good. So
Yeah.
we decided we wanted to leave Oregon. We had built up a team there that was pretty much allowing us to live wherever we wanted. So she did a bunch of research, and we took a road trip one summer and tested out a bunch of places and fell in love with South Dakota, and it provided all the benefits we wanted. So that's how we ended up here.
I
I'm going
love
to North
that.
Dakota in a couple weeks, but it's not the same.
Oh, what part of South Dakota?
North Dakota, going to
Oh,
Fargo.
okay. Yeah, you're going to be pretty far east then. So we're right in the Black Hills. So,
I hear it's beautiful there.
oh, the Black Hills are only like 100 miles by 50 miles, but I think it's the most beautiful part of the country. Obviously, I'm jaded, but it is beautiful here.
How did you get into real estate? So it sounds like you and your wife are both in it.
Yeah, it really started. I learned Google advertising when I was like 13 years old from my aunt who was an entrepreneur. And so I went into marketing at 18. I started my first official business. And then I took a little detour, went a little bit different route. But when I went that route, I was still doing marketing and everything. About 2016, my wife she was in real estate already. She started out in mortgage lending. And then we had
Mhm.
our kids and she left, took a couple years off. And then when she was ready to go back to work, went into real estate because it was a little more flexible.
Yeah.
So in 2016, I was working another job and she was like, "Hey, you should really get your real estate license to help me out. Your digital marketing background would help." And I put it off. I was like, "I got a career. I don't need that." She said, "You should do it. It's a good plan B." Still some of the best advice I ever received because a couple years after I got my real estate license, some things transpired and I ended up leaving that career that I thought was going to be my forever career and got into real estate. And so that's how I made the journey from there to real estate.
I love it. So you're like my husband, I dragged him into the business too. I was like, hey, I need some help. Like, you should get your license. So I love that.
Yes.
And you said it's the best thing that's ever happened. So that's great.
Oh yeah, it has been it's awesome. The first couple years were a little bit weird. And so in 2018, we were running a fairly successful real estate business, but we were making almost no money. And part of it is we realized it was funny, me being in digital marketing and my background with lead generation, we weren't using any of it. We had basically modeled our business after a brokerage and a couple of high performing teams within our brokerage without understanding that like their business model isn't going to work if you just put it in our business. And so I basically 2018 dissected the whole entire business, really looked at numbers, and what we realized is our cost per acquisition had just gone through the roof. So it was almost a third of our average sales price or our average commission, I'm sorry. And so we basically
Sorry,
from 2018 to 2020, Go ahead.
I was just curious. So that's what you were paying per lead, is what you're saying, like your cost per acquisition?
No, so our cost per lead was high too, but our cost per acquisition was to get somebody to the closing table. So we had the
Oh,
cost per lead, which we were doing a ton of Zillow and Realtor.com. And so our cost per lead was very high, but then we were also nurturing down the funnel with other paid techniques and using all sorts of tech and stuff that was costing us money. And so by the time we got them down to actually the closing table, we were spending about 3,200 per client to get them to the closing table. And when your average commission is $10,000, you pay taxes and all that type of stuff. We were like, this isn't sustainable. And where it really hit us is we realized like we had goals that we wanted to scale to. And we're like, there's no money to even do that, even though we're fairly successful. So from 2018 to 2020, we fired all of our lead generation companies. I basically took everything that I'd learned before getting into real estate about lead generation and just general business and rebuilt business systems. And by 2020, we had dropped our cost per acquisition by almost 80%. So we went from about 3,200 to just under $700 closing.
that's amazing. So since you've
So
done that, and that is where you've gotten into the consulting piece, because I've been very curious about that, checking out
yeah,
your
so once again, wasn't really a planned thing. We moved to South Dakota. Fortunately, we had the business in Oregon that was letting us float. And the goal originally when we moved is we were going to move here. I was going to basically redo what we did in Oregon here and just be a broker here. And about 3 months into it, I was like, I'm not doing this again. Just starting over with the grind. I was like, I don't want to do this. And about that time, I got a phone call from a recruiter in South Dakota who was also a business coach. And to be polite, things didn't go well. The meeting basically ended with him saying I was stupid and nobody would listen to me because I didn't write a book. So I looked at him, I was like, I guess I'll write a book then. 2024, in September 2024, I released a book on organic marketing and I started promoting that book on social media. And that was kind of how the consulting thing went because I started to realize like a bunch of people started asking, do you do consulting? Do you do coaching? And I was like, no, I just know some stuff about lead generation. And so I started out doing some one-on-one consulting, and that was a flop. It was successful, but once again, it was one of those things I realized from the experience before. You have to plan where you want your business to be, not where it is. And I realized I'm never going to get to where I want to be doing this one-on-one consulting thing. I took a step back, ripped some things apart again with this business, and we're just trucking forward. But it's been an interesting experience because it really was not the plan to be consulting. So we're just rolling with it and see what happens.
So are you
Well,
doing larger scale? Sorry, Desi, I was just wondering, are you doing larger scale consulting, like for teams or brokerages as a whole, like instead of the
Yeah.
one-on-one, just so I have a better understanding?
So I'm doing like building lead generation systems for large teams and entire brokerages. And then I am starting to do some group style lead generation coaching. So like basically intensive cohorts, 1 week. So it's 1 hour for 5 days, 5 days in a row. And we kicked that off. And then also I kicked off a school platform as well. And those are more or less just passion projects because I think one of the big issues we have within the real estate industry is if you're a solo agent, first of all, the big team and big brokerage models don't work for your own business. But the problem is that those solo agents have much more limited budgets. And so they can't go afford like to hire me to build a lead generation system for them. I'm really trying to do that because I think this industry has provided me with so much that now I'm like, how can I give back? So I did start a school platform. It's a whole $5 a month right now because I just really want to provide value to people. And that's my ultimate goal with real estate lead generation is twofold. The first thing is to provide so much value to somebody when they don't need you that when they need a real estate agent, it would be silly for them not to call you. And goal number two, and I stole this from a band, so I can't take credit for it, but is you have to be so good that they can't ignore you with all your stuff. And I think if you do those two things, it doesn't matter if you're talking Google ads or anything, obviously keeping in mind business math and profitability. But if you do those two things, you'll be just fine.
I love it. And I think one of my favorite things that you've said so far is you dove into the numbers because I think there's so many teams out there who have no idea that they're not profitable. And then when
Yeah.
they take a deep and actually look at it, they're like, oh, shoot, we're not doing good. And so I think that's great awareness. Yes, Liz.
I was just gonna say, that is me. I did a deep dive into my books and realized I was like, yeah, this isn't working. Like, exactly. I think that people need to revisit, right? exactly what
And
you're.
running a team, it's way too much work. Even as a solo agent, it's too much work to be not profitable.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is we're in an industry where a lot of it has to do with the perception and looking good. But I think another big thing too is we have so many sales reps, they'll call you up. And I always tell people, big red flag is if a sales rep asks you what your average commission is and then use that to justify the price of their product, it's probably a red flag. And that's something we ran into is a lot of sales reps be like, oh, your average commission is five or $10,000. You can spend $500 a month on X. And I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. But what you realize is $500, multiple times. And next thing you have all the funnel. And so I think it's really one of those things where by focusing on eliminating all those $500, that's how your profitability really comes in. And a lot of it for us too was we got rid of the Zillow and the realtor.com because we realized like those leads were so expensive. And so that was another big part of it too, is dropping your cost per lead to be much more reasonable.
Yeah, I love that. So you're teaching agents how to run their own ads and set up their own.
Yeah, and I think the easiest way, what we really like to do is bring people in top of the funnel with
Mhm.
Google Ads because they're a high intent ad, much better than like Facebook, which is based on a discovery model. So we bring clients and leads in top of funnel with Google Ads. Right now, depending on the market, we're running about 10 to $20 a lead. And then the biggest thing that I like to do is nurture people with social media because it's free. So bring them into the funnel, top of funnel. And then once they're there, get them onto organic systems. So you're nurturing. And then doing the same thing to like open houses, using organic to drive traffic into your funnel and nurturing with social media. Because ultimately it's a much cheaper way to get them down the funnel to the closing table. The other interesting thing about it is while we did this, our conversion rates went up too, because organic social builds such a better relationship. So not only were we getting cheaper leads to the closing table, but we were getting like fans that then were then getting us more referrals. So it really, and once you get that momentum going, it's a really profitable system in real estate.
I love that. And I love nurturing them with social because then they're always seeing your stuff. They start to know you, like you, trust you. So it makes sense when you go meet them face to face for the first time. They're like, "Oh yeah, of course I'm signing with you." Like, I think
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, and so we've pretty much just built systems around that. And that's where, like, especially with a solo agent, it's so easy, very small changes. I, a long time ago, learned about the Kaizen business efficiency model, which is something that Toyota has used for years, but it's basically small incremental changes over a long period of time make a big difference. And so that's a lot of what I like to tell solo agents is just those small changes in your business. We don't need to innovate. We don't need to come up with something new. It's just small. So one of the biggest things, like cold calling, we all know cold calling is like a phenomenal way to build a database. And originally, cold calling was just we're going to call people and then call them and then call them some more. And then agents integrated email. The next step to that is why are we not integrating social media? So, like, one thing that the big thing that I tell people is if you're going to cold call, before you cold call, film a hyper local video that has something to do with your community. And when you get a client on the phone or a lead on the phone and you have a good conversation, you get an email address, say, hey, do you mind if I just send you a hyper local video that I just made? I'll text it to you. You've already got their email, you've built some level of rapport. Most of the time, they're going to say yes. And then basically you just send them a direct link to that. The other important part of this is you add them as a contact in your phone. And then what happens is the social media platforms go to work for you. So they're data mining our phones all the time, looking for connections, and they're really going away from like the follower model. And so you can really start to leverage that. And so next thing you know, that lead that you talked to 2 days ago, they open up Instagram and you sent them a direct link to an Instagram video and they start seeing your stuff. And the crazy thing about this is I challenge any agent that doesn't believe this works, do it for a week. And then 2 weeks later, call those clients back and ask them if they've seen your stuff. And I guarantee you almost every one of them will say, yeah, ever since we talked, I started seeing your stuff.
Literally,
So,
that just blew my mind. I'm like, how did I not know about this idea?
well,
Seriously. I'm just like, ah,
and I
I'm
really
so
believe, I
excited.
think part of the problem is in real estate, it's really hard to monetize organic content. And what I mean by that is there's not a lot of money in it if you're teaching people like these methods, right? Because I can't charge a management fee for teaching somebody that. The problem with that is that's once again why we're in the place we're in because there's no one teaching it because there's no money in it. But it really is a super effective way. And especially with tech as fast as it's evolving, most of the things I've learned, I've taken from outside of real estate and brought it into real estate. The best money I've ever paid for that's taught me. I hired a guy years ago who was huge in fitness and in an influencer space in fitness because I saw real estate was headed towards where fitness was, and they were about 5 to 10 years behind. So I hired him for 5 hours of fitness coaching. And on the very first call, I said, don't teach me anything about fitness. I want to know how you built your business and all the tips and everything that you did. And hands down, that was probably the best money I've ever spent. And I've learned more from that, taking some of those principles into real estate. Because at the end of the day, like, we're really far behind in real estate. And that's really what I've tried to do is just try to find things from outside of real estate that work really well in other businesses. Because at the end of the day, like, a lot of agents have deluded themselves to thinking that we're special and we get to play by some special set of rules, but it's just business. That's all it is. And like, you make money the same way as any other business. But I think I literally had a bit, or we'll call him a coach, tell me one time, your cost per acquisition doesn't matter because the commissions are so high in real estate. And that he's teaching agents. And it's that is, I think, one of the big problems in the business is we have this superiority complex that I think is really hurting the progress that we could be making.
Yes. Yeah,
That
I think it's powerful looking outside of the industry because, like you said, people aren't running it like a business. They're doing things because they think but like, what other business does the cost of acquisition not matter? There's, that's not,
It's pretty much a universal rule in business, but we don't and I don't want to say nobody teaches it because there are a few brokerages and a few people that are doing a great job really teaching that to new agents. No, but I also think part of it goes back to you have to look at the reason this is happening. It's because the business model within a real estate brokerage where they're taking their split off the gross. So, if you have people in charge of training and running a business that don't really care about their agents, they just care about their bottom line. They don't care. They're going to take their 20% right off the gross. And if it costs you the rest of the 80% to get that lead to the closing table, your brokerage doesn't really care. And I think that's one thing that's great. Recently, with the Real and the EXP and some of the new models that are going away from the franchise model, it's forcing the industry to make a big change. And I think that's really only good for the agent. But I think it's also something that's so ingrained in the industry for years and nobody's been talking about it. And I think that's part of the reason, let's face it, we have an 80% turnover rate within the industry where people don't make their first renewal. And to me, like, that's a problem because I don't think an industry can get better with a turnover rate that is that high. And so that's part of my passion project is my goal is if I can get 10% of the industry to be better and understand some of these things that are just like general business stuff, we can revolutionize the industry. But it takes time because we've gone down this road so far where we've just lost all sense of anything that's going on right now.
I fully love that. Like I can dive right into that concept. Even yesterday, like I was thinking about what you're saying about looking to other industries on how to grow and build your business. That's how I always have been as far as I'll watch other people's social media and people that aren't in the industry. And I was telling somebody how annoyed I was that the algorithm kept showing me real estate stuff because I'm just like, I want to see what other people are doing. What are other, like you said, fitness people, like they really know what they're doing as far as building business and building a draw.
Yeah.
That's so
And
interesting.
I think that's really where we can have a lot of forward thinking is to look outside of real estate. I found really good success with that. And I think especially social media is also pushing that way, going away from discovery driven algorithms and follower algorithms and more to high intent SEO. And I think TikTok has been a huge driver of that, where it's like your follower count, all those type things are becoming. I started this consulting business a year ago. I cleared out every other social media account I had because I really wanted to prove you don't need a big following. And May 28th will be 1 year that I started. I posted my first video for this whole thing on May 28th. And in 1 year, I've had almost 1 million views across all my platforms. But my follower count, I have less than 5,000 followers across the board. Constantly every day, I'm like getting that stuff from people. Hey, thank you for the value. And I think that's another thing too, is we've really lost sight of what matters in real estate when it comes to a value standpoint for leads. And that's why to me, like providing value is like the most important thing, because if you provide value, the selling part of it just goes away. You don't need to sell people on anything.
So is your consulting, so the consulting, is it through the school? Sorry, you've said you've started like a school program. I
So
noticed that
yeah,
on your,
so I
tell us a little bit about
started Yeah, so I started basically the goal with it is to build a school platform where when you have 10 to 12 minutes as an agent, you can sit down, take a course, and immediately implement that in your business. And the
that.
goal is once again, those small implementations over a long period of time create big change. I've coined the phrase micro courses. So everything is like small bite-sized stuff that they can immediately put within their business. And the whole goal is to build systems that will reduce your cost per acquisition so you can make more money. And so, like, literally, I started it May 1st. It's brand new. And my whole goal with that is just to be able to provide value to the solo agents. I'm not trying, my goal is eventually, if we grow, to never go above $50 a month, but my goal is to keep it less than that. And so that's for solo agents, what I'd recommend. And if you don't have whatever the cost is when you go to sign up, just follow me on social media because literally everything from school, I've put out for the most part on social media. I will say the school platform's nice because you can do the screen share and show people, and then the consulting side of things, that's more like the large team and brokerage stuff. And that has been fun because it's really allowed me to network with other agents, but also see different markets. And that's one thing I learned. And another thing that is a big issue within the real estate lead generation space is we have a lot of companies that are like doing copy and paste campaigns across multiple markets. And let's face it, like a buyer in Portland, Oregon is going to be much different than a buyer in New York City. But yet we run the same exact campaign for both people. And then we tell the agent in Oregon, you're not doing a good job converting, which might be part of the problem. I'm not going to say it's not an issue because I think that's another thing is we teach conversion very, very transactional in real estate, where I'm much more of a consultative approach. But so we have this like copy and paste system that we go, and then we tell the agent, you just suck at being an agent. No wonder people leave the industry before their first renewal. And so I think really I've learned that catering campaigns to specific markets, if you're going to be running pay-per-click ads, is huge. And the other thing that I'm big on too is realistic expectations from lead generation companies, because like I said, I mean, I've literally pretty much been running Google ads since day one. Now, granted, it was really in 2018 when we really like dove into them to get really good at them. But the average turn time for a campaign to be viable in most markets that I've seen is 12 to 18 months. The problem is we have a lot of lead generation companies that don't tell people that, oh, we're going to get you closings in, which don't get me wrong, you can do with targeting. The problem is with Google, the more that you start tightening up your targeting to get a real specific client, your cost per lead is going to go through the roof. What happens is we either decrease the targeting and tell them, oh, yeah, you're still going to get closings in 3 months, or we increase the targeting, shoot the cost per lead through the roof, and then it's not profitable even when they do get a closing. That's a big thing for me too, is realistic expectations. When we moved to South Dakota, we started a campaign that's still running right now. So it's been a couple years now. And it literally took us 9 months to close the first deal of it. And from month 0 to 12, I think we closed 4 deals. We got 484 leads, closed 4 of those. But what the crazy thing is, from month 12 to 18, we closed 6 more, and the bigger part of that is we had 15 people get pre-approved and start the process that are still looking. But the other thing about it is from 0 to 12 months, I think we had 484 leads. From 12 to 18 months, then we had 300 and I think 80 something. So just in half the time as the campaign starts going, it gets a lot more efficient. The tech behind Google Ads is phenomenal. But the problem is we have lead generation companies that tell people, oh, you're going to get closings. And so what happens is they overspend their budget, or they make a budget that's not sustainable without the closings that they think they're going to get in 3 months. And then they can't afford to continue the campaign, so they shut it off. One of the worst things you can do with Google is turn it off and turn it on. It needs consistent funding to optimize and become really good. And if we had lead generation companies that would tell people honestly what's going to happen, I think we'd have a lot better. I think a really interesting stat. Now, this isn't published anywhere. This is my own personal, unofficial scientific study, but lead generation companies and coaches, the average time that a client stays with them is 2 months after the contract's up. And that to me, like from a coaching and consulting standpoint, is like a big issue. And I think it all comes down to unrealistic expectations that people are trying to push on agents.
That makes a lot of sense. I love what you're saying. I'm super curious about this, like Google ads for and running them for a couple years because I'm extremely impatient. Like I just want things to happen like right now, yesterday, tomorrow kind of thing. And so like I would not have the tolerance to run an ad that long without the guidance from somebody who like actually has experienced it and knows what they're talking about. So I really appreciate that information.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too is the other part of it is if you're getting those high level, like top of funnel leads, you can generate them for between $10 and $20 a lead for the most in most markets. That's another big thing too. Google is very market dependent. So there's a direct correlation between your average sales price and your cost per lead across the
Mhm.
Google. And I'm talking like search ads. So there are some other display ads, but these are just search ads. But we have a lot of people who they'll go in with, they'll say, hey, I can spend $500 a month. And the big issue I have with most lead generation companies, and once again, I'm not talking about all, there's a few good ones, but for the most part, they start quoting your cost per lead based on just your ad spend and don't account for the management fees. So I had an agent down in Texas that was spending $3,500 a month on her ad spend, and she was generating leads for $65 a lead. But that didn't include the management fee that she was paying the company that was running the ads for her, which, if you include that, it pushed it up to close to $100 a lead. And then when we take into account the average conversion rate is in real estate on an online lead is zero point 0 or 0.4% to 1.2%. That's an NAR statistic. When you take that into account, paying $100 a lead, that's pretty hard to be profitable. And so that was one thing, when you start adding that in, but they would give her a monthly report that said, oh, your leads are only this amount. And she's, that's pretty profitable, but they're not including the management fee with that. They're also not including the tech fee because they were running a website for her, which was an IDX website. And that was another thing. They weren't including that either. Once again, it's just understanding those business numbers. And we're not teaching that really in real estate.
Well,
No.
I've got a quick question just because, again, I'm not very familiar with Google Ads, and I think there's probably people listening that aren't going to be as well. What's the differentiate? You said a search lead. So what is that? Like a search ad?
So a search ad is simply, yeah, so it's basically a search ad is if you go onto Google and you type homes for sale in Boise, Idaho. Those ones that pop up at the top that say like sponsored or ad, those are going to be the search ads. So when I'm talking about search ads, that's what we're putting together an ad that when someone searches your city, homes for sale, or what's my home worth, that's another one that I'll tell people don't ever try to get seller leads on Google. Almost every market, once again, I don't like to talk in definites, but almost every market, seller leads are like a losing proposition right now because wholesalers have bid the seller leads up exponentially higher because they stand to make so much more than a real estate agent per transaction. So as a real estate agent, you can't compete with the wholesalers for seller leads. But when someone types in that search of homes for sale, what's my home worth in specific city, and those ads pop up on Google, those are search ads. The other
Okay.
ad is a display ad, and that's basically, we do use those for retargeting, but basically that's when you drive traffic to your website. You can run a display ad, and those are the ones that like follow you around the internet. Actually, we've got time. I think one of the best display ads you can run is when you book a listing appointment, you send the person with the listing appointment to a landing page where they do a survey. On the backside of that survey, you have a Google conversion tracking code. So as soon as they hit that landing page, it logs them as a user. And then between then and when they actually go to the listing appointment with you, you start running display ads to them. It is one of the most phenomenal things to sit down and before you say anything, you say, have you seen my ads online? They're like, yeah, ever since we booked this appointment. So if I can do that for you, what can I do for your house when I get it on the market? Their eyes will, I've had literally people go, we're going to hire you right now because, and those search or those display ads are like 10 to 20 cents a click.
Hmm.
And some, depending on how you have it set up, if they don't click on it, you get brand recognition and you don't pay for it. So
Cool.
it is like a phenomenal way. Now, the downside to that is with the speed of the market recently, that's been hard because let's face it, someone's like, you need a listing appointment. They're like, I want to list tomorrow. You're like, I don't have time to set all this up. So that's one downside as the market picks up, we have to change what we do. But it's a great way to get in front of people before you even see them. And we've used that too, like even with buyers and stuff, explaining, hey, this is how we utilize digital marketing. So we can leverage that. If you hire us, we're going to leverage that for your advantage as well.
I love that. I have a question. So we do everything out of our CRM. So putting the contact into our phone, is there a way that we could optimize our CRM? Could we do somehow retargeting to people that are already in our CRM?
Yes. Now, okay, so a couple questions. What CRM are you using?
Follow up boss.
Follow up us. So do you have a like a public facing landing page or like a
Yeah,
public facing part of
that's through
it?
it's through Sierra Interactive for that.
Okay, so Sierra so in Sierra Interactive in your settings, there will be a spot where you can put like a Facebook pixel and then
Okay.
also a Google tracking code. And that's the cool thing about out of the box IDX websites. So Sierra Interactive, KV Core, Real Geeks, pretty much all of those have this built into it, but nobody really knows about it. The other thing that I will tell agents, if you have one of those websites and you think you ever want to run these ads, put your Meta Pixel and a Google tracking code on those websites from day one because you can't go back. So you can't get information before they were installed, but you can always take information from when they were installed and it's free to do. But you just copy and if you have a Google Ads account, you just create it and it's a really small piece of code. And then in the back end of Sierra Interactive, you just copy and paste that code in there. And then you can create a custom audience of anybody who goes to your website and then run ads to them. So a lot of times what we would do is we would always have a display ad that was just running to anybody that went to our website. So as soon as they went to our website, they would start seeing other stuff. And a lot of it was, I'm a huge firm believer in educational content versus what I call look at me content. Nobody cares for the most part how many homes you sold. Nobody cares about all the look how cool I am content. So we were running educational content. And because we would have buyers and sellers, we would make it very general to real estate. And a lot of that educational content that we were running through those display ads would put them back into our social media. So we would run an ad like to a YouTube channel, for example. Once we send them to that YouTube channel, they're going to watch that video that's the ad, but then they're going to start seeing our stuff organically. So that's how we started decreasing that cost per acquisition piece because we were just staying in front of people for way cheaper than just continually running ads to them.
Cool. Yeah. Well,
Hopefully that was it. So yeah, to answer your question, it's very easy. You just have to get the code from the ad account and copy and
okay.
paste it in there. And then in the ad account, you just create a custom audience and you say, I want to run an ad to everyone who's visited my website. And the crazy thing about it, you can actually do that without a website too, with a YouTube channel. So you can actually connect a Google Ads account to your YouTube channel, and then you can retarget people who have watched videos. And like, for example, how we utilize that is when when we were still in Oregon, I ran, it was funny. I never had a lot of followers, but I got a bunch of business from it, a YouTube channel. And my niche was Forest Service cabins up in the Mount Hood National Forest. And so I was making a lot of videos about that and then also doing different neighborhoods on Mount Hood. But then what I could do is I could say, anybody who watched this video about this specific neighborhood, I want to serve them up this ad. And there's some limitation to it in terms of how many views and stuff you have to get for these to really work. To run a display ad, you have to have a minimum audience size of 300. And I say minimum, ideally, you should have more than like 1,200 in order to really be efficient with it because Google needs data. And so the more data you have, the better results you'll get. But yeah, you can do that even without an IDX website, just connect. And once again, that's the thing. Even if you're not running ads right now, but you have a YouTube channel, make that connection, set up a custom audience now, because if you ever decide, hey, I want to, you can't go back. So just connect it. And that's actually very easy because Google and YouTube, same parent company. So literally in your Google Ads account, if you just go under your tools, connected assets, you just click YouTube, put in your YouTube login, and it connects them like that. It's instantaneous. So no coding or anything.
There's so much value there, Josh. Like seriously, I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm gonna sign up for your school account, your class,
So
courses. Where do people do
please
that?
do.
Yeah, people
So
find
if you
you.
go to school, I'm on all social media platforms, pretty much real estate broker Josh, real estate broker Josh Reese on some of them. But then if you want to go to school and it's skool.com/real estate leads. I was super fortunate that domain was still available. It's school.com/real estate leads will take you there. And yeah, I'm doing it till the end of May. It's $5 a month. And then I might bump it up to $9. I don't know yet. I'm still debating on how fast I
I'd
want to
pay
move that
nine.
up.
I would
But
pay nine just to
my
start.
goal is My goal is to always keep it reasonable. And the other thing I do tell people with that too, I'm building that out as we go. Like right now, I don't have all the courses up there that I'm going to have, but it's a slow process. And that's why I have a real time charging a whole bunch of money till I actually have a completed product. But it's been really cool too, because it does have a discussion feature on it. I like to say it's like a Facebook group with a learning management platform. And so it's cool because we got agents from all over. I actually had a guy that I talked about something, and today he's actually utilizing it for an open house and a broker tour to get more exposure for a listing. And so we're seeing like people utilize it in different markets, and just the share of information across it has been absolutely phenomenal with almost no people in it yet. It's been a fun little project, and I hope it goes further.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and for dropping so much knowledge.
That was like
Absolutely.
huge, huge.
Yes.
So that's what I'm here for.
I'm going to follow you. I'm totally going to check out your school. And I'm sure everybody else after they hear this, they will too. And when we launch the podcast, we'll make sure that all your information, your contact information is in there so people can find you.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be amazing.